Have you ever felt your reality bend, just slightly, like something unseen was reaching toward you from beneath the surface of your ordinary life? A moment where the air thickens, your skin rises, and your subconscious mind whispers, "Pay attention, something is here." Because the story you're about to step into doesn't begin with a miracle or a discovery or even a person. It begins with a quantum frequency, a vibration so precise, so intelligent, so impossibly ancient that the moment it appeared, nothing around him or within him was ever the same again. It surfaced in an instant that felt too ordinary to matter. A late American evening, the kind where the world slows down, where the hum of the air conditioner merges with silence, and where a person can almost hear the thoughts they've been trying to outrun. He wasn't chasing mysteries. He wasn't calling for answers. He was just adjusting equipment in the soft glow of a desk lamp when something pressed through the energy field of the room, a pulse so delicate it moved like a breath across the back of his neck, so subtle it was almost imperceptible, yet strong enough to pierce straight into the deepest layers of his subconscious mind. It didn't feel like sound. It felt like recognition, a forgotten memory resurfacing from a life he couldn't place. A whisper he had felt before in childhood, in dreams that faded too quickly, in déjà vu moments that struck with unnatural clarity. Something inside him tightened, as if his awakened identity had been waiting for this single vibration to activate. The lights shifted, the silence condensed into something alive, and the entire atmosphere changed direction, orienting itself toward him, as though the quantum consciousness behind reality had suddenly decided to reveal its hidden truth. His pulse steadied, his breath aligned, every boundary between inner and outer reality softened, and for the first time he sensed he was being observed, not by a person, but by a presence, not with eyes, but with frequency, a living intelligence in the quantum field, responding to the exact state of his vibration, mirroring his emotional signature, reading the unseen stories stored in the basement of his subconscious mind. And here's the part no one admits out loud. You've felt this too, haven't you? Those moments when your name appears in someone's thoughts just seconds before they text. When a sudden chill passes through you at the exact moment your intuition whispers a warning. When repeating numbers follow you from clocks to receipts to street signs. When your life reorganizes itself after a single shift in your emotional state. These are not coincidences. These are fractures in perception. These are glitches in the facade of ordinary life. These are the first signs that the hidden architecture beneath your reality has begun to reveal itself. This frequency, the same one he felt, belongs to a vibrational intelligence woven into the quantum fabric of existence. It shapes destinies, it breaks emotional patterns, it reorganizes timelines, it whispers through synchronicities, dreams, intuition, and the unexplainable moments that haunt your edges of awareness. And whether you've noticed it or not, it has been interacting with you for far longer than you think. Because this isn't a story about a man confronting the unknown. It's the moment where your own consciousness begins to expand around a truth you've always sensed but never fully understood. A truth that enters your life quietly, like a shift in the air, and then rearranges everything you thought was fixed. And the only question that matters now is this. What if this frequency has already been shaping your life, and you never realized it? And if something in you stirred while hearing this, if a thought surfaced, a memory returned, or a quiet recognition rose through your chest, take a moment to acknowledge that. Resonance is not accidental. It's a sign that your awareness is already shifting, already expanding into the space this frequency is opening for you. Before we move forward, I want to invite you into something simple but important. If this introduction touched you in any way, if it made you feel seen or understood, consider liking this video. Not as a favor, not out of pressure, but as a way of letting the algorithm know that content about consciousness, vibration, and inner awakening matters and should reach the people who are looking for it without knowing what to search for. And if something specific moved inside you, an intuition, a memory, a question, share it in the comments. You might be surprised by how many others feel the same. That's how this community grows, not through noise, but through recognition and shared expansion. If you want to stay connected to these stories, these insights, these layers of hidden truth, subscribe. It keeps you inside the journey as we go deeper into the structure of the quantum field and the forces shaping your reality. If something inside you already senses a truth unfolding in your life, tap like now. It signals that you're ready and helps me bring you the next part of this awakening. Now breathe, settle in. What comes next goes even deeper. He didn't realize the shift had already begun until the room itself seemed to lean toward him, as if the very air were waiting for his next breath. The silence thickened again, not with fear, but with intention, a kind of awareness that pressed gently against his skin. And then it happened, a pulse, soft, almost apologetic, yet powerful enough to ripple through the edges of his perception like a pebble dropped into the fabric of the quantum field. The temperature shifted by a degree. A faint prickle rose along his arms. His chest tightened in a way he couldn't explain. It wasn't emotion, it wasn't thought, it was recognition. He knew this sensation. Or rather, some deeper layer of him did. The part of his subconscious mind that had always known more than he allowed himself to admit. For a moment he couldn't tell whether he was remembering something or being shown something. The déjà vu washed over him with such force it made the edges of the room blur, as if time itself had folded for a second and let a hidden truth bleed through. A subtle vibrational field pressed inward, surrounding him with the unmistakable feeling of being observed, not by a person, but by intelligence, pure, silent, non-physical intelligence. The numbers caught his eye next. 1:11 on the microwave clock. Then 3:33 on his phone, repeating patterns whispering through the background of the moment with a precision that felt almost confrontational. Shadows shifted where nothing moved. The energy in the room seemed to breathe. And just as he tried to steady himself, another pulse rolled through him, this one deeper, slower, as though it were syncing with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. His perception sharpened. The hidden energy beneath the physical world shimmered at the edges of his awareness. This wasn't imagination, and he knew it. This was a signal, a quantum frequency brushing against the boundary of his ordinary mind, a subconscious message disguised as sensation. He closed his eyes for just a second, and instantly a memory surfaced, one he never lived, a dream from childhood, a voice he had forgotten, a moment where the world tilted just enough for him to glimpse something watching him from behind reality. The same presence, the same frequency, the same impossible familiarity that made no sense to his rational mind, but made perfect sense to something deeper. And maybe you've felt this too. Maybe you've walked through rooms that felt strangely alive. Maybe you've heard a sound that didn't belong. Maybe your skin has risen for no reason, or a thought arrived out of nowhere and changed everything. Maybe your life has been touched by synchronicities that struck with such violent accuracy you couldn't explain them away. These are not random moments, they are subconscious signals, quiet doorways into awakening, proof that your perception is widening, that the quantum consciousness behind your life is pulling you toward a truth you were always meant to see. If any part of this feels like something you've lived, even in silence, share it in the comments. Not for me, but for the community awakening alongside you. Your engagement helps this message reach others who are experiencing the same shift and don't yet have words for it. And if this resonates with your own expansion of consciousness, like this video and subscribe so you stay aligned with what we're exploring. This is just the beginning, because in the next moment, just as he leaned in, searching for the source of the frequency, it changed direction, it reacted, it moved with him. And that was the moment he realized the frequency wasn't appearing to be understood. It was appearing because it had chosen him. The moment he realized the frequency had chosen him, everything he thought he knew about perception began to dissolve. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. It unfolded the way truth always does, quietly, patiently, as if the universe had been waiting decades for him to finally reach this exact vibrational state. The pulse shifted again, but this time it didn't move through the room. It moved through him, threading itself through the layers of his awareness with a precision that felt almost surgical. His breath caught, his vision sharpened, a subtle warmth gathered behind his sternum, expanding outward like a slow ignition. And in that expansion, something clicked. This wasn't external energy pressing in. This was his own consciousness rising to meet it. He remembered reading once that the quantum field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to who you are. Gregg Braden had called it coherence. Bruce Lipton described it as the subconscious aligning with the environment. Joe Dispenza said it was the emotional signature that shapes reality. But none of those ideas meant anything until now, when the field around him and the field within him merged into a single sensation, awareness becoming visible. It was then he understood that the frequency wasn't random. It was a form of communication, information encoded in vibration, the same way Penrose and Hameroff theorized consciousness might operate at quantum scales inside the brain. The pulse wasn't electricity, it wasn't sound, it was data, a transmission emerging from the architecture of the hidden reality he'd always sensed but could never articulate. The shift in the room wasn't happening to him. It was happening with him, echoing his internal state with unsettling accuracy. As he stood there, suspended in that impossible moment, memories began surfacing like bubbles rising from the bottom of a deep lake. Times when he felt cold without knowing why. Times when his intuition made decisions before his logic could argue. Times when a sudden pull toward or away from someone shaped the path of his life. He had always dismissed these experiences as coincidence, emotion, or imagination. But now he saw them for what they were, subtle signals from the quantum consciousness operating beneath the surface of his perception. His emotional patterns shifted next. Feelings he'd carried for years loosened their grip. The heavy ones dissolved, the quiet ones amplified. It was as if the frequency reached into the depths of his subconscious mind and rearranged the emotional architecture that had defined his identity. Even his thoughts began to feel lighter, clearer, more spacious. The world around him didn't change, but the lens through which he saw it did, and that was enough to tilt every aspect of his life into a new trajectory. Synchronicities exploded around him. People he hadn't spoken to in years reappeared as if summoned. Conversations aligned with questions he hadn't spoken aloud. Random events folded into meaningful patterns. The hidden energy behind his days was no longer hidden. It pulsed with intention, revealing how this frequency had been guiding his perception, his behavior, his decisions, and even the unfolding of his destiny. And maybe you felt this too. Maybe there were moments in your life where something seemed to be calling you, not with words, but with sensation, with intuition, with impossible timing. Maybe you've been pulled toward certain choices, released from certain paths, or awakened by emotions you didn't fully understand. If you've ever felt reality shift around you in ways too precise to dismiss, you might already be responding to the same frequency he did. If any part of this resonates, if you've ever felt the strange alignment of events or the subtle pull of something you can't name, leave a comment with the words, "Already felt it," not as a performance, but as a signal that you're awakening alongside countless others. Like this video and subscribe if this story mirrors something you've lived in silence. Your engagement helps this message reach the minds and hearts that are ready for it, because as he stood there, breath steady, perception widened, he realized this frequency wasn't done with him. It was preparing him for something much deeper. And that's where we go next. He didn't move at first. Something in him knew the moment he stepped toward that frequency, there would be no going back. Yet the energy around him shifted again, so gently it almost felt like a breath brushing past his awareness, and that subtle pull was enough to guide him forward. The air grew dense, but not heavy. It felt purposeful, as if the quantum field was subtly recalibrating itself around his presence. A strange pressure formed behind his ribs, a quiet ache that wasn't pain, but awakening, stretching the boundaries of his perception into places his mind had never explored. As the frequency deepened, so did the changes inside him. His intuition, once a faint whisper he often ignored, now moved like a calm, steady voice threading through his thoughts. He began sensing things before they happened, not predictions, not fantasies, but an inner certainty that unfolded with the inevitability of a memory returning. His relationships shifted too. People whose energy no longer matched his vibration drifted naturally from his life, while new connections sparked with an uncanny sense of timing. Nothing felt random anymore. Everything felt orchestrated, guided by an invisible intelligence operating just beyond the surface of the visible world. His emotional state became more fluid. Instead of reacting from old wounds or subconscious patterns, he found himself responding with clarity he had never experienced. It was as if the frequency had reached inside his subconscious mind and gently rewired the emotional architecture that once held him captive. His identity loosened its grip on who he used to be. Every limitation he once accepted began to dissolve. The version of himself shaped by fear, confusion, and habit was fading, replaced by something quieter, stronger, more aligned with the truth he had always sensed beneath the noise. The coincidences intensified next. He would think of a person, and they'd call. He'd imagine a scenario, and it unfolded within hours. He'd ask a question internally, and the answer would appear through a conversation, a sign, a sound, a number. The hidden reality behind his everyday life was no longer hidden. It shimmered through moments like a code waiting to be read. Dreams came back with startling clarity, some familiar, some foreign, yet each one carried a message that shaped the next steps he took. This wasn't chaos. This was coherence, a quantum awakening unfolding in real time. And maybe this is where his story begins to mirror your own. Because if your life has been shifting in ways you can't explain, if your intuition is louder, if synchronicities are increasing, if your emotional patterns are changing, or your relationships feel different, it is not random, it is not coincidence. It is the early phase of your own vibrational change, your consciousness expanding into the hidden architecture that has always been guiding you, waiting for you to reach a frequency where you could finally perceive it. And if any part of this echoes something within you, share it in the comments. Your voice helps create the field of connection that this community is built on. If this story feels aligned with your awakening, like this video and subscribe to stay connected as we move deeper into what this frequency truly means. Because just as he reached the point where he thought he understood what was happening, the frequency shifted again. Not away from him, but toward him, as if it wasn't finished, as if it had only revealed the first layer of a truth far bigger than he imagined. And the question that rises now is this: what if this frequency didn't just transform his life, but is calling you now? He stood there, suspended between who he had been and who he was becoming, feeling the frequency gather around him like a tide rising in slow motion. It didn't push, it didn't force, it simply aligned with the deepest layers of his awareness, revealing truths he had carried his entire life without knowing how to name them. And as this resonance deepened, something inside him opened, not a thought, not an emotion, but a space of clarity so sharp it felt like stepping out of fog into clean morning air. The pieces of his journey that once seemed chaotic suddenly arranged themselves with flawless precision. Every synchronicity, every moment of déjà vu, every intuitive pull, every quiet shift in the background of his perception. He saw now that none of it was random. It was the field speaking through experience, guiding him toward a version of himself he had never allowed to surface. This realization didn't arrive as a burst of light or a dramatic awakening. It came as a gentle exhale, the kind that lifts a weight you didn't realize you'd been carrying for years. His mind softened, his chest loosened, his energy expanded outward as if his internal frequency had finally stepped into coherence with the quantum field surrounding him. He understood, with a certainty that felt older than thought, that the world had not changed. He had. And in that shift, the entire structure of his life began to glow with a new kind of meaning. The hidden reality behind everything he had lived, every choice, every emotion, every turning point, revealed itself not as coincidence, but as communication. This was the moment the journey turned inward. He felt his subconscious mind reorganize itself, not violently but gracefully, like a river returning to its natural course. Old fears loosened, old identities cracked. The stories he once told about who he was and what he could be dissolved into something wider, deeper, far more honest. He didn't feel like a new person. He felt like himself for the first time, a version of consciousness rising from the inside, reshaping his perception without asking for permission. It was awakening not as an event, but as a state, an emergence that had been waiting patiently beneath every experience of his life. He looked around the room, but nothing had changed, and yet everything had. The objects were the same, the light the same, the air the same. But his awareness had expanded so far beyond the surface that the familiar world now felt like a doorway into a much larger one. The frequency was no longer something external reaching toward him. It was something internal rising through him. He understood now that the true transformation wasn't about unlocking a secret from the universe. It was about remembering the part of him that was always connected to the field, always attuned to the energy, always vibrating with its intelligence, a part he had ignored, doubted, silenced. And in that recognition came the most profound truth of all. The frequency doesn't change the world. It changes you. And when you change, everything reorganizes to match the vibration you carry. Relationships shift, opportunities align, timelines adjust. The field responds not to what you ask, but to who you become. This was the revelation that tied every moment of his journey together, from the first pulse in the air to the transformation unfolding within him now. And if you're feeling something similar, if a part of you is opening, expanding, seeing beyond the surface, then your journey is already underway. If your perception is shifting, if your intuition is louder, if your emotions feel deeper or more precise, that is not imagination. That is your consciousness aligning with a frequency that has been calling you for years. If something within you stirred during this story, if you felt recognized, understood, or awakened, I want you to comment a single activating phrase below. You can write, "I awaken," or "I see beyond," or "I am expanding." Choose the one that matches the vibration inside you right now. Your words help anchor this field of awareness and show how many people are rising together. Because this moment is not an ending, it's a threshold, and what comes next goes even deeper. In the next video, I'm going to show you why your vibration, the one you feel in your body right now, is already shaping your future. The truth behind that is far more powerful than you've ever been told. If this touched something inside you, just whisper it in the comments. I woke up. It lets me know you're here, and it signals to the algorithm that others who are awakening deserve to find this too. And if you're still here, breathing in the quiet shift that has been moving through you since the beginning of this story, then you already know this moment is not random. When a message como this reaches someone, it reaches because their awareness is ready, because something within them is rising to meet a new frequency. So before you step into the next layer of this journey, I want to ask you to engage with this space consciously. If this video opened something in your perception, even slightly, take a moment to like it. Not for me, but so this knowledge about quantum consciousness, vibrational awareness, and expansion of the subconscious can reach others who are waking up silently, just as you have. When you like or subscribe, you help this message move through the algorithm and into the lives of people who need it, but don't yet know what they're searching for. If you feel aligned with this field we are building together, subscribe to the channel so you remain connected to every new chapter of this unfolding. Your presence strengthens the energetic network forming here, a community grounded in awareness, curiosity, and genuine transformation. And when you're ready, leave a word in the comments that reflects your current state. It can be, I awaken, I continue, I see beyond, or whatever matches the vibration moving through you right now. Your words matter more than you realize. They anchor your intention, they expand this field, and they help others recognize their own awakening through yours. Now breathe in the shift you feel, because the next video goes even deeper. It reveals why your frequency, not someone else's, not someday, but yours in this exact moment, is already shaping the future you are walking toward. Don't break the momentum. Step into the next chapter with clarity and presence. If this frequency reached you, don't ignore it. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the bell, share it with someone who is ready to awaken, and go straight to the next video now. Your future is vibrating, and you are not here by accident.